Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to those in the Eastern Hemisphere. Thank you for joining us for this special briefing with His Excellency, Ambassador of Bosnia Herzegovina to the United States, Bojan Vujić. With us today is also Aleksandar Đuričić, President of the Serbian American Leadership Conference. My name is Ilijana Todorović. I'm an attorney in the United States and a SALC board member and VP of Legislative Affairs. I would like to start by welcoming Ambassador Vujić to the SALC Leadership Series. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first appearance in front of the quote-unquote American audience, which makes this briefing that much more special. Your Excellency, thank you for finding the time to talk to us today, and thank you for allowing us to be the first ones to host this conference with you today.
I want to say hello to all of you. It is my pleasure to be with you today. I heard a lot of good things about you guys, and I was really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, thank you. Before we start with the questions, I would like to give the stage to Aleksandar Đuričić to share his welcoming remarks and a few words about the Serbian American Leadership Conference. Alex?
Thank you, Ilijana, and thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us. We're very honored to have you with us, especially this being your first appearance before the American audience, before the Serbian diaspora, before the Bosniak diaspora, and before the Croatian diaspora. Please first convey our well wishes to all the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We hope that the measures are being eased, that people are staying safe and healthy, and that we can continue and get back to normal as soon as possible. As Ilijana has mentioned, we've already had several people as part of our SALC leadership series here in the last month. We've taken advantage of it. And one of the people that we've had is President Željka Cvijanović of Republika Srpska. So I think it's great to have you as the Ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina coming a couple weeks after her appearance. That way we can have an idea of how the entity is functioning, how the two entities together in Bosnia and Herzegovina are functioning, working together, and the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina as a whole. I mentioned recently in an interview I did with Balkan Insider that there's not going to be things that we all agree about, the Bosniak, the Croat, and the Serbian communities. However, there are certain things that do unite us and that should unite us. For example, economy. And for these reasons, we're interested in hearing from you how the economy in Bosnia and Herzegovina is, how the three different ethnic groups are functioning and working together. And we hope that this is the beginning of a long relationship. I know you haven't expected it to be your beginning of your appointment with COVID-19, but I look forward to meeting with you and getting together and cooperating with you in the future. Thank you again for joining us. Ilijana?
Thank you, Alex. I'm sure that the viewers are by now used to the passion and enthusiasm with which you represent SALC and our community. Ambassador Vujić, I would like to open our Q&A session by sort of introducing you to those who may not have known that Bosnia and Herzegovina has a new ambassador in the United States. So you assumed the position relatively recently, in September of last year. Can you tell us how has your earlier career prepared you for becoming a diplomat? Is that something that has always been your goal?
Well, I was a professional tennis player for many years, and I used to play a lot of professional tennis tournaments, including Grand Slams and the Davis Cup competition. And at that period of time, I always felt that I am ambassador for my country. Wherever you go, wherever you play, doesn't matter if you win, if you lose, you're ambassador for your country. And tennis is intense, stressful, and demanding sport that requires discipline, concentration, and very strategic thinking. It is in this way very similar to diplomacy, where often a mental game of tennis is being played between diplomats. Later on, as a Davis Cup coach of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I often had to interact with international officials and various representatives, and this way was useful as building a strong foundation for my current role as a BIH ambassador to the United States. I also think when you get a new job, it's very important. How do you feel about that? And I feel great. I feel very confident in what I'm doing. And the most important thing is that I'm very happy here in DC as ambassador.
And we're glad to have you here. Athletes are known to be some of the best ambassadors of any country in the world. And for those who are interested in becoming diplomats, there you go. You just heard of Blueprint. Ambassador, how has your transition from Bosnia to the United States been? And how has your family acclimated to life in Washington, D.C.? It's no small feat by any means to uproot your family and move across the world.
Well, for me, it was great. I mean, I love United States. I love America. I love the people here. I used to live here for 5 years in Miami. And I have a lot of good friends here, very, very good friends. And I just like being here. I mean, and I have a wife and 2 kids. I have 2 girls. They are 6 and 11 years old. They're going to good schools. We were maybe a bit afraid a couple months ago because of new environment, meeting new friends, new food, new English. But after a couple of weeks or couple of months, things were getting much, much better, and girls are very, very happy girls now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I wish your family all the best during this pandemic, and I hope that they're the challenge of acclimating to a completely new culture, new language, new system. It's a nice little adventure for them. Let us briefly touch upon the Bosnian embassy itself and its organization. For those who may not be familiar, can you tell us about the size and operation of the embassy and its staff?
Well, the embassy staff is a relatively small team, composed of the 7 diplomats and the consular officers, involved in carrying out activities related primarily to political, economic, and the consular components of bilateral relationship between Bosnia and Herzegovina and United States. We have also 2 additional staff members responsible for the military aspect, military attaché and assistant military attaché, and we have also 1 representative of Bosnia and Herzegovina for State Investigation and Protection Agency, responsible for intelligence and investigation aspect of the bilateral cooperation.
Okay, and to expand on that a bit, how many consulates does Bosnia and Herzegovina have in the United States, and where are they actually located?
Beside here in DC, Bosnia and Herzegovina also has a consulate general in Chicago and a permanent mission to the Organization of United Nations in New York, while the consular office in Chicago primarily works on providing consular services for residents of the states in the eastern part of United States, and the mission in New York is responsible for the multilateral aspect of the cooperation with UN and other international organizations.
Okay. And as someone who is from Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly from Banja Luka, do you happen to know what the size of the Bosnian expatriate community is in the United States? As you're aware, this year has been a census year here in the United States. Do you expect the results of the 2020 US census to show a change in that number, if you know roughly what that number is?
Based on information that I have received, I believe there is a number of individuals in communities from BIH living in United States about 120,000, with the majority being Bosnian. But if we take into consideration those from earlier generations of immigrants, then it is at least twice this number. I believe that Serbs are the largest overall community in the United States. I really look forward to USA Census, and this will be very useful resource for the work in our embassy.
Okay, well, thank you for that information. I really didn't know, and I was very curious to find out what that number would be. Maybe not many know, but Washington, D.C. is not home only to the United States government, but also to institutions such as the World Bank and the IMF. Does the Bosnian embassy maintain a relationship with these institutions and similar institutions? And if so, has the relationship been prosperous?
We have a diplomat assigned to handle, monitor, and communicate with these international financial institutions. However, the main communication with this institution is handled through the entity government, the Minister of Finance of Republic of Srpska, and the Minister of Finance of Federation, as well the Council of the Ministers of Joint State Institution. The relationship with these institutions is and has been very, very good. At time that pressure for reform have created real challenges for government institution and the leaders as austerity measure often hit ordinary citizens very hard during necessary reform and transition period in our economy. The pressure to streamline and downsize government institutions, that the key condition raised by the IMF and World Bank, are especially challenging in our government structure, where we have joined BIH state institutions, 2 entity governments, 10 canton governments in the federation, and of course many and municipal local governments. This creates a very large group of employees in the public sector and unfortunately redundancy of responsibility that can waste resources and prolong processes for getting things done. Often the 2 entities, especially the Republic of Srpska, are frustrated by how long it takes to pass and implement necessary economic reform measures. The Republic of Srpska is especially frustrated by a very large number of public sector employees that has now risen to over approximately 22,000, which is the higher than entire sector of the federal employees in the old socialist Yugoslavia. As you can see, there are many challenges to implementing economic reform that are crucial to our relationship with the IMF and the World Bank. But we at the embassy do everything in our power to maintain good communication and cooperation with both of these important partners for economic reform.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for such exhaustive response. Prior to COVID-19 situation, what were the embassy's major goals and plans with respect to attracting foreign direct investments, or specifically U.S. investments in Bosnia and Herzegovina? How successful have they been, or did the coronavirus halt that progress?
Well, the embassy does not set the goals for attracting foreign investments in BIH or entities. Our responsibility is to support the priorities and agendas set by BIH Presidency and the Council of Ministers. That mainly involves providing information and key contact to potential investors in a timely way. We enhance and assist communication by helping potential investors in USA to better navigate a very complex system of authority, competencies, and responsibilities of government institution at every level within BIH. We work very closely with institution and every level of government and have very good coordination with the entity governments. Here in the United States, we have developed under my leadership very good cooperation with our colleagues in Republic of Srpska office for cooperation, trade, and investment. We have a number of USA firms currently investing and doing businesses in BIH, most recently NCR, which is in Atlanta based, and the Fortune 500 company has developed a very strong center in Banja Luka that shows how American companies value the opportunity offered by both the Republic of Srpska and Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Oh, thank you, Ambassador. It's nice to hear that meaningful relationships are being fostered. Now, we talked about you being relatively new to your position, but not too long after your arrival, only a few months after you assumed your post, the entire world found itself face-to-face with one of the largest global challenges in history. How did the pandemic impact the Bosnian embassy and your duties as ambassador thus far? I'm sure it presented some unique challenges.
Of course, this pandemic has complicated our work as we have to conduct our diplomatic relation almost exclusively by telephone or through email. In addition to following the regulation of the USA government and the city of Washington, D.C., we also have had to adjust our work in accordance to regulation as decision of BIH government institutions. All of this has created real challenges for our normal operation, where we have especially been disrupted by not being allowed to receive appointments by individual needing assistance from our consular service sector. Nonetheless, we are continuing our work in a responsible way that has adjusted to these extraordinary conditions.
And we hope that you'll be able to see the other end of it, being in the positive, let's say, an atmosphere and just overall association. But of course, we have to address the coronavirus. It has been an unavoidable subject these past few months. Can you tell us what the economic conditions in Bosnia were before the pandemic, particularly when it comes to GDP, the unemployment rate, the inflation and interest rates and so on? Did the country encounter the pandemic with a stable economy overall?
In general, despite enormous challenges created by uncertainty in the energy markets and in the relation of the key members of the international community, the overall economic situation in BiH was stable and economic reforms agreed to with IMF and the World Bank were being implemented. The main economic goal was to continue to build upon the accomplishments cited by World Bank that noted that BiH has become an upper middle income country that has accomplished a great deal since the mid-1990s. In particular, even before this current pandemic, BiH was having to navigate the turbulent waters of international global trends arising from tariff dispute between the USA and China, as well as trade tension between USA and EU, which is the BiH, the most important economic partner, as well as from the outflow of skilled workers from both entities to EU. In addition to these challenges, we also had to deal with the uncertainty created within the EU by Brexit and by an expansion fatigue within EU that has now led to the new policy with new obligation for states seeking EU membership. This is why there was a drop in GDP from 3.6 in 2018 to about 2.9 in 2019. So despite a generally stable and a positive economic situation within BiH, there were a number of factors straining our resources and capacity and limiting our economic growth even prior to this pandemic.
Of course, yeah, that's completely understandable. Now, we know that in dire times, such as these, both people and countries come together and support each other. I saw that the European Commissioner for European Neighborhood Policy and Enlargement Negotiations, Mr. Wahedi, announced a macro-financial assistance package to help countries meet their most urgent needs. Bosnia and Herzegovina is among 10 recipients with the planned financial package of 215 million euros, I believe. Can you tell us how will this financial assistance be used, and are there any hidden terms or conditions attached to the package that citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina need to be made aware of?
Well, decision on how to assistance from the EU will be made by all of the relevant authorities and every level of governance within BiH, led by the Presidency, the Council of Ministers, and by the entity governments. Agreements between the key political actors representing BiH, 3 constituent peoples and 2 entities, will define how this assistance will be allocated. I am not involved in this process as I am ambassador to the United States, but as far as I know, there are no hidden or secret terms to the agreement with EU.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And on a similar note, since you mentioned the IMF a moment ago, in late April, I saw that the IMF's executive board approved about $361 million or 333 million euros in emergency assistance for Bosnia and Herzegovina under the rapid financial instruments. It's my understanding that 38% of the amount should go to Republika Srpska, while 62% will go to the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, with both entities then contributing 0.5% each for District Brčko. How will these funds be used? What are some of the primary considerations?
Again, in this situation, all decision as to allocation with these funds will be made by all of the relevant authorities at every level of governance within BIH, led by the presidency, the Council of Ministers, and by the entity governments. Agreements between the key political actor representing BIH, 3 constituent peoples, and the 2 entities will set priorities and will guide expenditure. The funds will be used to stabilize our economic situation and to help to offset the losses to our budget and key services. This will assist our economic recovery once measures on social distancing and shutdown of non-essential business are lifted.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm sure the authorities that you mentioned will keep the citizens informed about the particular purposes where these funds will be allocated. Now, Your Excellency, in addition to these institutional financial packages, how much does Bosnia generally depend on foreign aid from its partner countries and its citizens from the diaspora? Which aspects is this kind of help usually needed the most?
If we take into consideration that the GDP of BIH is slightly higher than $20 million, then we can say that assistance provided by our international partners, led by EU, is very significant to our efforts to reform and strengthen our economic potential and enhance and improve governance. BIH received about $850 million in assistance since 2014 from EU funds, EU member states and the USA, and from the countries such as Japan, Turkey, Serbia, and Croatia. The EU alone in this period allocated over 550 million euros for assistance in 7 priority sectors: democracy and governance, rule of law and fundamental rights, competitiveness and innovation, education, employment and social policies, transportation, environment, climate action and energy, and agriculture and rural development. All of these areas are of great importance for our reform efforts, and we are grateful for the assistance provided by our friends and partners. In general, we agree on these priorities, but sometimes the political conditionally mostly added by EU and US creates added pressure and strain to our society, and this can lead to the breakdown and support for reform, especially as a political and election cycle with BIH tend to disrupt perception and priorities to reforms.
Okay, yeah, there are always challenges when we are dealing with such complex system, but I surely do hope that the funds end up, being allocated as promised, and that they help, the areas to which they are intended to help. Now, shifting gears here a little bit, we said that we have to talk about the pandemic, and one of the biggest questions right now is what happens after, right? And the timing of our briefing is on point because today is the first back-to-work day for many people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, I am not an economy expert by any means, but local economics, the economic experts, explain that there are 3 theoretically possible outcomes of the pandemic in terms of its impact on the country's economy. Outcome in the shape of the letter V, which is a sharp decline and then sharp and fast growth. We have the letter U, which is a sharp decline. We have a period of struggle prior to the comeback. And then we have the outcome in the shape of the letter L, which is a sharp and rapid decline and without a comeback, which of course is the worst scenario. The measures that the country will undertake are considered to be a major factor that will play a role in which outcome will eventually occur. So, Your Excellency, can you tell us what is that the country can and plans to do in order to aim for the best case scenario, which would be the letter V scenario?
Obviously, the policies will be set in the manner I have already described by all of the relevant authorities at every level of governance within BIH, led by the Presidency, the Council of Ministers, and by entity governments. Agreement between the key political actors representing BIH and 3 constituent peoples and the 2 entities will determine what course of action will be taken and the timetable for recovery. Already several leaders in BIH are pushing for a rapid and determined response to stimulating economic recovery. In particular, the Serbian member of Bosnia Herzegovina presidency, Milorad Dodik, has been actively leading not only the response to the pandemic, but he has also been pushing for decisive action to best position the joint state for economic recovery. He has especially called for easing pressure on small businesses and on large employers of workers through greater fiscal flexibility and lowering deferring tax burdens. He has also rejected the creation of a new government institution at the joint state level that would add unnecessary bureaucratic obstacle and costs to joint state institutions. They are already bloated by they are capable, if politics allow them, of handling their current responsibilities in assisting economy recovery.
Those are some very important pieces of information, and thank you for sharing. We hope that the Bosnian leaders will manage to design a way to bring the economy back onto its feet. Now, with COVID-19 finally out of the way, let's talk about some other current issues and events in Bosnia. For example, the situation with the incoming immigrants on the Bosnian territory has been highly disputed, and it seems to have polarized the public. While some believe that the immigrants should be helped in these challenging times, others argue that this is a security rather than a humanitarian question. What is the country's stance on this, and are things currently under control? What are the long-term plans? Where is this going?
Well, this is another big challenge to economic and political stability in the BIH. Unfortunately, the pandemic has overshadowed this problem, and the frontline countries have been left these past few weeks to shoulder and the burden almost all on their own. Likely, the number of migrants making their way to our borders has dropped significantly during this time, but expectations are that they will dramatically increase over the summer as economic conditions in their countries of origin dramatically worsen. Several leaders have taken strong position on the need to better prepare and deal with this threat by taking more restrictive and decisive action on the border and with respect to deportation. Milorad Dodik, the Serbian member, BIH presidency, and Fahrudin Radončić, the BIH Minister of Security, have been the most vocal in warning that this problem can derail economic recovery following the pandemic. Again, forgive me for repeating myself, but decision on how to deal with this will be made by all the relevant authorities at every level of governance within BIH, led by the Presidency, the Council of Ministers, and by the entity governments. Agreements between the key political actors representing BIH, 3 constituent peoples, and the 2 entities will determine what course of action will be taken.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I hope that your explanation was informative for those viewers who perhaps were not sure how to position themselves with respect to this issue. Another contentious topic in Bosnia is that of small-scale or mini hydropower plants. There have been appeals and protests to introduce a moratorium precluding construction of any dams and mini hydropower plants on the Bosnian territory for the time being. What can you tell us about this?
This is really not part of my mandate, not something that I have followed closely. However, this is a challenge that many developing countries face in finding a balance between the need to develop greater capacity for affordable, renewable energy, and at the same time protect the natural beauty and resources that are also potential economic factor related to tourism. My own hometown of Banja Luka has especially taken great efforts to protect the Verbas River and has invested heavily in protecting against flooding, but also in attracting tourism and international sports competition like World Kayak and Canoe Championship.
Thank you, Excellency. As someone who is from Banja Luka, we are very proud of our Verbas River, and we really do try to engage in a concerted effort to preserve it and to highlight its beauty. Now, according to the Bosnian election law, and we have to talk about the election, right? General local elections are scheduled to take place in October of this year, and the Central Election Commission's deadline to issue the election notification was May 7th, I believe, which was 4 days ago. Was this deadline honored, and are the October elections definitely proceeding as anticipated?
Well, despite the several significant questions that will have to be answered by the court, there does seem to be a consensus among most relevant political parties that the election should proceed as a schedule or that should be slightly delayed. I believe that an agreement between the main political actors is possible, and that it is still possible to organize local election, but only if such an agreement is reached in the next few weeks.
Okay, we will continue to monitor the situation, and hopefully we'll be able to have a more concrete update for the viewers. Now, Your Excellency, as you know, there are a number of organizations here in the United States, such as SALC, whose goal is to build bridges between their home countries and the diaspora. As a diplomat, whose job is also to be the glue between his home country and the United States, how important do you think that organizations such as SALC are in this process of fostering cooperation and outreach? And what are some of the benefits of having such organizations prosper and thrive?
Well, I value and respect the work that you and a similar organization like yours have made in organizing our communities in USA. Having strong ethnic organization in USA leverage our ability to have our voice heard, especially in Congress. It also allows for easier and more effective communication between our embassy and the diaspora, and that we serve and assist through various services that we provide. You and organizations like yours are essential to keeping and preserving our identity in the USA, and as such as you can always rely on me and on my staff to offer our goodwill and assistance to your effort like the one we engage today. I wish you continued success and that we may soon meet face to face either in DC or Chicago.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. We really do appreciate it. Our goal is exactly that, at least one of them, to make sure that our community's voice is heard and they are being accounted for in some of the important processes here. Now, for all of those Bosnian citizens who are currently in the United States and those American nationals who happen to be in Bosnia right now, what are the ways in which the Bosnian embassy stands at their disposal, and how can they reach for assistance? Is there a phone number or email address they can use?
Well, one of the main activities of the embassy during the difficult time is to inform our citizens in USA about coronavirus measure and activities that are taken by the relevant BIH institution, particularly about the rules and recommendations regarding traveling to Bosnia and Herzegovina. We updated on a daily basis, informing our Ministry of Foreign Affairs about these changes, and in that way making it possible for the Council of Ministers and other institutions to use the basis to take further steps to make decisions in terms of finding potentially new ways to help our citizens return home. So far, there were no charter flights organizing by our authorities.
Okay, well, that is good to hear. Your Excellency, I believe that those are all the questions that I've had for you today. On behalf of the Serbian American Leadership Conference, I would like to thank you for finding the time to do this briefing with us and to answer the questions that we had, as well as those that we had received ahead of this conference. Before we conclude, is there anything that you would like to share with the viewers that we perhaps did not cover?
I just want to send one message to all citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina and to all people in the world that stay home, keep safe. We are still in Corona time, but I think that President Trump is doing a great job with his team in the United States, and I'm sure that the worst time is behind us, and then in a couple of weeks, months, we will be 100% free.
Ambassador Vujić, thank you once again for participating in our leadership series. It was a distinct pleasure and honor to first be the one to introduce you in this way to our viewers, and second, to address some of these issues with you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, and the Serbian American Leadership Conference would certainly like to continue to collaborate with the Embassy of Bosnia Herzegovina and build a productive dialogue for the benefit of our community. Another thank you to all of those who are watching and who are following our work. I would like to wrap up by announcing the upcoming events. Next Monday on May the 18th at noon Central Standard Time, SALC will host Vuk Jeremić, President of the People's Party, or Narodna Stranka, and former President of the UN General Assembly, as well as the Vice President of Narodna Stranka, Dr. Sandra Rašković-Ivić. Thereafter, we will have a special Memorial Day program with some prominent speakers. Please follow SALC's social media updates for more details on that. I think that that would be all. Please do continue to send us your questions and suggestions. The point of doing this series is to address the issues that are of importance to you and to make them informative. Hopefully, by our next program, things will be back to normal and our daily routines will be restored. Until then, have a good night and stay safe.